Okay, today we're looking at the Focusrite plugin suite. This is a collection of 4 plugins and it's sold by Focusrite for £79 British. I got these plugins actually because they're included free with the Focusrite Scarlett Solo USB audio interface, which is a cracking little audio interface. It really is. Check out the review on our channel for that. It's just brilliant. And believe it or not, these plugins are included free with the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. But because they're also sold in their own right as a separate product, I thought I'd review them separately. And then if you're interested in getting the Scarlett Solo, you can see what they're like. And if you're interested in buying these standalone, again, you can see what they're like. There isn't a good review of them out there that I could find. Okay, so I've got a little thing going in Logic using the plugins.
Everybody wants to use the Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use the Focusrite upon the music.
Yeah, and they do have a lovely sound. I must say, I really like these plugins, and I'll be using them all the time now that I've got them. So, what do we get in the suite? Well, you get a compressor, an EQ, a gate, and a reverb. Okay, let's look at them one by one. Okay, first of all, the compressor. Now, this is modelled on a Focusrite classic optical compressor. Optical compressors. Look, out there on the internet, you read all this stuff about what is an optical compressor, what is a VCA compressor, what is effect compressor, and all this, and the real truth is, only somebody who is extremely experienced in circuit design can really explain all the subtleties of compressor design, compressor circuit design, because it doesn't only include the detector circuit type, valve, FET, optical, VCA, whatever, but it also includes feedback, feed-forward designs, and combinations of that. You know, it's an extremely complex subject, and the truth is, only people who are, you know, extremely versed in circuit design can truly explain the different types of compressors. But generally speaking, optical compressors, they use a light basically, and the light glows when the signal is too loud, and that glowing light is detected by a detector. And optical compressors have a characteristic that the light glows and then stops glowing. As the signal's too loud, it glows and then backs away, glows, and the detector sees this, and so generally, I suppose you could say that optical compressors, they don't have a linear decay. Okay, they sort of back off the compression quickly, but then imagine a light bulb glowing and then coming back off again, glowing and then turning back off. So it glows when the music's too loud, triggering the compressor to compress, and then it backs off, but it backs off the compression at once, sort of thing, as the light bulb, we'll call it a light bulb, it's not a light bulb like in your house, but as it drops back from glowing, the compressor backs off, but the glow oozes out, so to speak. So you get a kind of, the little peaks being compressed, get compressed, and then the compressor backs off, but it doesn't totally back off. And the more you drive an optical compressor, it starts to, the light bulb, the bulb, it's not a light bulb as I say, in a house, but the bulb, the more you drive it, the more the bulb retains the light, so to speak. So if the optical compressor is continually compressing material all the time, it starts to have a longer and longer release time, because it's sort of like it's remembering what it's compressing. The bulb gets hot, that you could say, and in terms of how a layman could possibly conceptualize it, the bulb gets hot, and so as it's working on a continual load of material that's too loud, it's working, it gets warmer, so it takes longer to get to turn off. So as it's processing lots of material, it stops releasing so fast. And yeah, you know, I mean, anyway, if you want to read more about it, go and read about it. But there it is. This is an optical compressor, or modelled on one. It's a lovely little compressor. Traditional, you know, all the usual controls: threshold, ratio, attack, and release. You've got an input and output control as well, and an on-off switch. There's not that many presets, just kind of basic starting presets, including a couple of crushing ones, a limiter and a basic, you know, gentle compression. Not many presets, but of course you can save presets in your DAW as you go and build up your collection of presets. This is your gain reduction meter, and this is your this can be switched, this meter here, to show either the input or the output. Okay, well, look, I've got it on a bass here, on a bass. And it's a lovely little compressor, it really is. Let's take it off. On. Yeah, you hear that? It's let's go through a couple of presets. Let's have the drum crusher. You know, it can really crush. Let's go for this max pumping one. You know, it can growl a bit if it's working hard. The tight limiter works very well. It's got a really nice sound actually. Perhaps bass isn't the best. Let's look at it on this vocal here. Let's take the reverb off the vocal.
Everybody wants to use a Focusrite.
I'm going to go for the maximizer.
Everybody wants to use a Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use a Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use a Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use a Focusrite upon the music.
You know what I mean? It's got a nice squishing quality, whether it's noticeable or very subtle.
Everybody wants to use a.
It's a lovely little compressor. What more can you say? You know, very nice indeed. Quite analog sounding, although that sounds a bit cheesy to say that, but it is. And next, the EQ. Well, I just love this EQ, and again, this is modelled on a classic Focusrite EQ. It's a little bit out of the ordinary, this one, maybe for noobs, but I absolutely love this EQ. Let's go back to the bass. Okay, you've got two mid bands, a low mid and a high mid band, and both are parametric. So they both got a gain control offering 18 dB of cut or boost, and a Q control. The low mid goes from 100 Hz to 3.2K, and the high mid goes from 2K to 12K. And you know, the combination of these two, you can do anything, you know, from surgical stuff to whatever you like. Okay, you can always find what you want in the low and the mid high, and it's got a lovely quality to it. Again, an analog like quality. It really does remind you of working on a very high-end console channel strip or something. What's interesting about this is the low and the high bands, which are switchable between a shelving EQ, and the bottom EQ can be switched to a high pass, and the high band can be switched to be a low pass. Okay, now for noobs, let's explain that. Both have obviously a frequency control. So with the low band here, let me set the frequency to 160 Hz. Okay, now with the switch set to the right position, it's a shelving EQ set to 160 Hz. Now I'll show you what that is. That's this type of EQ. Okay, so you set the frequency to 160 Hz, which is what I've set the Focusrite to, and then you can, this lower pot, when it's in this shelving mode, the lower pot offers 18 dB of cut or boost. So basically you choose your frequency, in this case 160 Hertz, like that, right, and then you can boost or cut that by 18 dB in either way. So that's the type of EQ it is then at the bottom end, and it's just cutting or boosting the low frequency at the frequency that you choose, lower or higher or whatever. Yeah, and the angle, the shelving amount is fixed to modelled on a Focusrite EQ. Okay, so that's what the bottom EQ does in its right switch mode. But if you switch the switch to the left, it's now a high pass filter. For noobs, high pass means you choose the frequency, for example 80 Hertz, and anything higher than that passes through. Anything lower than that is cut off. Okay, and when you're in this high pass mode, the bottom control becomes the slope control, or the slope amount, and you can have a tight steep slope or a shallow slope. And what you basically, so I've set it to 80 Hertz, and basically what you're doing then is this: you've got a high pass filter, okay, and I set it to 80 Hertz, and then the bottom control is you're setting it fully that way to a very steep angle, like that, a steep slope or a shallow slope, like that, and that's sort of how drastically the frequencies below the cutoff point are shelved away, disappear. Yeah, and it's very interesting, this this high pass here, because it has this subtle. Let me put it to 160 Hertz on this bass. Have a listen. As you make the shelf tighter and tighter and tighter like that, starting off shallow, tighter and tighter and tighter, it has the effect of starting to subtly emphasize the frequency that you've chosen. In this case 160 Hertz. Have a listen. Okay, I'm at a very gentle slope now, like this, right? And I'm going to move it up and up and up to a tighter and tighter or steeper and steeper slope, right? And you hear that, how it's starting to emphasize the cutoff frequency? It's wonderful. It's in shelving mode, you just choose your frequency, boost or cut, and it's wonderfully warm. It really is. It's beautifully intuitive, this bottom. I mean, you can really get whatever you want out of it. It's lovely, and that way that it subtly emphasises the drop-off point, the steeper you make the slope. It's well, you'd have to play with it. It's just a lovely bottom end on that. And at the top end, it's just the same but in reverse. So you could, if the switch is set to the right, then it is a shelving EQ. If I choose a frequency of 9K like that, then what you're doing is you're getting this 9K and then 18 dB of cut or boost. So you're cutting or boosting 18 dB in either direction like that. And again, the angle, the shelving angle is fixed. It can't be changed, and that's modelled on a Focusrite EQ. And if you switch the high band to the left switch position, it then becomes a low pass filter for noobs, meaning you choose the frequency such as 9 kilohertz, and everything lower than that passes through. Everything above is shelved off, and then it's working like this. Right, let's set it to 6K for example. So 6K, and then this becomes the steepness of the slope. Steep, like that, and all the way to shallower or more gentle like that. And again, this upper, this high band low pass, again has this quality that as you steepen and steepen the slope, it starts to emphasize the frequency. It's lovely. Let's go to this vocal here.
Everybody.
Okay, I got it tuned at 9K, and it's in low pass mode. And listen to how it starts to subtly emphasise the 9K
Everybody wants to use a focus.
As you tighten the slope, it starts to just crispen up and start to subtly emphasize. There's a little bit more treble content comes in at that cut-off point.
Everybody wants to use a Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use a...
It's lovely. It has the effect of just, you know, sort of bringing out the emphasis at the top end of the vocals, the sibilance, but without creating massive sibilance, and just the definition of the vocal and things like that.
Everybody wants to use a Focusrite upon the music.
I absolutely love the CQ, and the mids, as I say, you can get anything you want out of them. Absolutely fantastic, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful EQ. This is absolutely love it to bits. Otherwise, you've got a meter. The other controls a meter and an input and output control and on and off switch. Again, not many presets, but you can save your presets with your DAW to build them up. That's the EQ. Okay, then we've got the gate. Now this is a real odd one. Now I've got the gate working on this bus. Have a listen. This gate, well, it functions as a straightforward gate, and a very good gate it is too, with standard controls: threshold, attack, release and hold. Again, a limited amount of presets, but you can save your own with your DAW. You've got a gain reduction control as well, which allows you to make the gate do anything from subtly ducking down levels to just cutting them out completely. You know, very, very versatile as a gate in its own right, but it has this center section which is extremely interesting. And let me just show what's going on here. Okay, I've got a synth. Okay, let's take the gate off. I've got a synth playing this pattern. Okay, it's just doing like a drone thing, right? Now that synth is being routed to this bus here. Okay, and I'm panning it. This is the synth here, and I'm panning it hard right. Okay, right. Now I've got also this ultra beat doing a simple kick drum pattern. Let me take the reverb off that. Yeah, doing this simple kick drum pattern. Okay, now this is also being sent to this bus. Okay, and I'm panning the kick drum hard left. So on this bus, the synth doing the drone is arriving panned hard right, and the kick drum is arriving panned hard left, and then the gate is strapped across the bus. Let's bring it down here. The gate is strapped across the bus. Now you've got different modes which allows either input 1 or 2, left or right, to gate the other side, so to speak. So if I've got it in this mode here, then the left input 1, the kick drum, is gating the right input, the synth drone, input 2, and only the right input comes out the other end, but panned center. Okay, so all I do is solo the bus, bring up the threshold until the kick drum starts to gate, you see, and this kick drum is now gating the synth. It's very clever, isn't it? Then there are different modes. If I put it into this L2, then the left, or input 1, is still gating the right, but both are heard coming out in their respective pan positions. Yeah, and then you've got the same the other way round. The right gates the left, input 2 gates input 1, and you only hear input 1, but it comes out panned centre, or you hear them both panned respectively hard left and hard right. But if I go back to this one where the left, or input 1, the kick drum gates the synth right. Okay, let's see what happens when I start to centre pan the kick. You see, you start to hear it more and more. So you can have it centre panned, it still gates the synth, but then you hear it. You pan it back hard left, you don't hear it anymore because input 1, the left doesn't get through. And then there's this mode N, which seems to be like a cross gating thing. If they're panned hard left and right, you hear them both, you know, it's sort of like one's gating each other. But only the kick obviously is going to gate the synth because of the type of material. But if you pan them both centre, you know, like that. It's clever. It's a clever little thing, isn't it, this? What have I done now? Wrong. Okay, set up right. No, sorry, kick left, synth right. Here we go. Clever, isn't it? So, you know, whichever, whether you're panning left, whether you're gating the left signal with the right signal, or the right signal with the left signal, you can have it in that mode or that mode, and you, even though the signals are panned hard left and hard right respectively, the signal that's being gated gets re-centered at the output, so you don't hear it panned. Bloody clever. It's a clever little thing, this, and that way you hear them both. The left still gates the right, but you hear them both. And if we centre them now, you hear the gating and the original drone and the kick. Yeah, it's clever. And then these two are just the same back to front. It's nifty, isn't it? So that's doing my little synth thing, and then I've got some Scarlett Reverb on there as well. Okay, so that's the gate. Wonderful little tool. And that leaves the reverb. Now this reverb doesn't seem like much. Initially you look at it and you think, well, it's just got a few controls and not many presets. You're so used to reverbs having lots and lots and lots and lots of presets, all different types of spaces. But once you get into the control, this is incredibly versatile. Once you get into the controls, so it's on the vocal now.
Everybody wants to use a Focusrite upon the music.
Okay, now what I'm going to do is this reverb is strapped right across the vocal channel. Okay, so it's being used as a through effect. The vocal is going straight through the reverb. I'm not using this as a send effect, an additive effect. Okay, so the vocal passes right through, and if we turn it to dry, we hear only the dry vocal.
Everybody.
And if we turn it to wet, we hear just the reverb affected signal. Okay, let's turn it to wet, and then we can show you what goes on. I'll start with this preset, Long Canyon. Okay, put it fully wet. Okay, let's reduce the size a bit, just to keep it, you know, more under control. Okay, now you've got this pre-filter, which allows you to filter out the content going into the reverb. Okay, it doesn't affect the dry signal passing through, it just affects what gets into the reverb. So what you can do is you can start with it very low, in case you're filtering out all the top end of the vocal. Then you can bring as much or as much treble content of the vocal in, mid and treble, until it's centered, in which case you get the vocal passes in as is, and then going the other way you start to take off the bottom end. So what I've done there is I've set the pre-filter, so I'm filtering out most of the mid and bass from the vocal going into the reverb. Okay, then you set the size. Okay, and finally you can set the air for the reverb itself. This is the amount of air, the amount of glisten that the reverb has. Let me set this back a bit more basic so you can hear that. Yeah, so I'm filtering out the bottom end of the vocal. So only the upper end of the vocal is going to get reverb on it, and then drop the mix back to balance it so I've got dry and reverb.
Everybody wants to use
and that, because I've pre-filtered out all the body of the vocal, I keep the intimacy of the vocal, but there's a glisten of reverb over the top. Just the top end of the vocal, the treble frequencies are being reverbed.
Everybody wants to use
and then I can adjust how much glisten that reverb has.
Everybody wants to use Focusrite.
Or I could do it the other way around. I could darken, take all the treble content out of the vocal coming in.
Everybody.
Right?
Everybody.
And then
everybody,
when I balance the mix,
everybody wants to use Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants.
I just get reverb on the lower mids and the bass end of the vocal.
Everybody.
So it's incredibly versatile. I'll put it back how it was.
Everybody.
I'm just now putting reverb on the top end. I'm filtering out all the bass and mids from the vocal.
Everybody wants to use Focusrite.
And then dull the reverb down a bit.
Everybody wants to use Focusrite.
And again, because I'm filtering out any of the mids and bass from the vocal getting through to the reverb, I retain the intimacy of the vocal, because it's not the mids and the bass of the vocal is not being swamped, but there's that glisten of reverb on being applied just to the treble frequencies of the vocal.
Everybody wants to use
it's incredibly versatile, and you can build up all the presets you want by saving them as part of your DAW presets.
Everybody wants to use Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use Focusrite upon the music. Everybody wants to use Focusrite upon the music.
Wonderful set of plugins, they really are. So there you go, they retail at £79 for the pack, or as I said, they're included free with the Scarlett Solo, the review for which is also on our channel. A cracking little audio interface. Yeah, so there you go, hope that's useful.